Thank you for being here. Congratulations to all of you. I am going to start with a question that I think I'm going to throw to all of you. To what extent were you thinking of the Western as a genre as you were making this film?
For me, like, I do love cowboys. But I didn't really, I mean, I did watch some Westerns in preparation and thinking about it, but the story was so specific and so particular, and it was really kind of like 1925.
Set a bit later than
yes,
most
a
Westerns,
little bit later when they were starting to like quote cowboys, you know, and cowboys were trying to, well, the cowhands were trying to look like the cowboys of yore, and which Phil always mocked, you know.
Yeah, the minute they got the old lookbook out and started ordering from the catalogue to look like John Wayne in the movies, he's like, not that John Wayne had done a movie by that point, but, you know, that kind of thing. He's sort of, inauthentic. He doesn't like that.
So which Westerns did you watch?
Well, I guess my favourite are The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, and Once Upon a Time in the West. And I mean, there's been a lot of really good Westerns as well, but I mean, I really did think this was a very specifically, actually almost a personal story, and almost like a intimate quartet, but set on this ranch. And that's what I sort of really loved about it. And doing the research, looking at the 1925 cowboys and the woolies that they wore, and they all looked, to me, incredibly sexy and sort of like half animal, half human.
To the actress, was that part of your process at all, thinking about this as a Western? Because I think you can also think about the film as a melodrama or a tragedy, or, you know.
Yeah, no, I didn't look at it much as a Western. I mean, it's the era, it's the place, and it's certainly a context, but it didn't help me to look into that world from that point of view. It was incredibly important, imperatively important to understand the working life of a ranch, to understand what that does to your body, your voice, and anything else that the heat or the cold affects, and the work, the labor, the walk, that, you know, the saddle saw walk, what it does to your hands. And Phil is described very vividly in the book as having these incredibly calloused, dirty, sort of weathered hands. So to understand that and get these little dainty things to rope and to ride, and to...
Did you learn castration as well for the part?
Moving on?
No. It's important.
He actually did learn how to do that too, isn't it true? Yeah.
Yeah, I went to a ranch, and that's what happens. If you eat steak, that is what happens to a yearling calf. It's a fact of it.
Yeah. Sure.
You know, there's part of me that worries about getting far-bombed when I talk about this, but, you know, there is a very real anger about it, but there's a very real reality to how animal husbandry is done, both then and now. And, I went there.
Kirsten?
The landscape?
Whatever you want to talk about.
The landscape.
Okay.
I'm going to have words with you after.
Rose was definitely haunted by the landscape, meaning Benedict, being gaslit by him, but also just the sounds of the ranch, even being out there and working. It was, some days were so windy, you know, people were almost blown over, right, Ari? I mean, it was so, and also those kind of sounds that blow through a house, and, you know, just being aware of all those little things for Rose is something that mentally just drives her, you know, nuts.
I feel I relate to this in a less scary sense, as Peter does, but I feel he flourishes in the landscape. I feel he doesn't quite mind being alone and like a hermit to himself. He's a very curious person, and there's a lot to kind of experience and search and dwell on out there. So yeah, I think that's his escape, his place.
I would have thought you'd have said, oh, you just wanted to be shut in your room.
True. Am I getting a directorial correction here? Yes, it's the room that he flourishes in this fantastic landscape that he's quite scared in, actually, and imposed upon, and it's too intense for him.
It's a gangster note to give a boy in front of an audience, Jane.
Thank you, Jane.
Excuse me. It's just like a bit of a joke, like natter between us all.
This was our working life.
Ari, do you want to talk a little bit about just sort of finding the visual language of this film with Jane?
Yeah, we prepped a lot. We did kind of almost a year of work before we started shooting, and I guess with any film, you have a plan, and then you also find it as the reality kind of takes place. But something that definitely was our guiding light was a visual simplicity and kind of clarity of information. I remember one post-it note I had that said clarity of information. Seems very dry, but in order to know what that information is, actually takes a huge amount of kind of study of the script and getting to know the characters, and then I guess touching on the Western thing as well, I think there is a lot about the film that appears like a Western, but it's not really a cinematography thing. But for me, a Western, there's always a kind of big graphic show of violence between maybe two groups of dudes. And but in this film, we were really interested in those kind of very microscopic, invisible kinds of violence that happens. I think someone closing a door or stepping on a step or moving a chair back from a table can be just as terrifying as pulling a gun out. And that's one of the things I think that really excited me when I read this script, just how attuned it was to that, human psychology, what is actually scary in life. It's not always guns.
Yeah, I think too, for me, the story talks a lot about very deep yearning, and I love it because I always feel like that, the most heightened moments that I've had in my life is like when you're really in love, and you just feel the physical and everything coming together. And I think this film does touch in this area, but in a way of loss, really, or of grief. And I think that feels really an incredible grief, really. And he's kind of put it to sleep, and it's when this boy turns up and brings it all up again.
And the landscape serves all of us in that purpose, in the sense that all of his emotional memories contained in that landscape, and the few artifacts remaining of Bronco Henry, but also what it does to him, that sense of isolation becomes almost overbearing in that first chapter when he's looking for George in the boarding house. And when I first watched the film, I wasn't quite sure why Jane had given all that time to Phil in those moments, and I really got it the second time, that it was just him feeling his profound loneliness for the first time. And what that then starts to unhinge in him, and how not the landscape, but his place in it becomes very alienated, even though he's seemingly in charge of all the aspects of beating the weather and managing the men and the animals. There's something in his core that's untethered at that point and gets further and further unwound.
I wanted to pick up on something that you said this morning in our press conference, Benedict, where you talked about how you stayed in character throughout the film, and so therefore you and Kirsten were not really speaking because of the Phil Rose dynamic. Is this how you both typically work as actors, or is this something that came from Jane, or what was that?
That's all right. Do you want to answer that?
Just subtly kicked Benedict. I was like,
Don't answer that question.
We didn't talk to each other, no.
We didn't. I mean, we had nice weekends, but it was, no, it's the first time I've done that properly all the way through a shoot. I've stayed in accent and dialect before. This is the first time I stayed in character. What was incredibly helpful was it just gave me permission to be him, to absorb him, to spend every waking minute of a day shoot being him. and picking up textures and accidents and just happenstance, rather than mechanically looking at a scene. It was stuff that I could continually process because I was being in his shoes. And yeah, there was a lot of practice during the day when we weren't shooting as well. Lots of, one-hand cigarette rolling, lots of banjo playing, lots of whistling and whittling as well. But yeah, it really helped me. It really helped me. There's a polarity of difference between me and him. So to remain kind of bathed in that experience meant that I could feel more confident about being as authentic as I possibly could be in my interpretation of him.
Kirsten, what was your perspective on that?
Well, Benedict and I don't really have many scenes together, really. So for me, I had to create this whole demon on my own, as well. So with the piano playing and all those things, it was me alone most of the time, which happens a lot when someone gaslights you. They give you a little taste of something, like his artistry and the way he plays banjo, and just listening to that and knowing that you can never be that artist that he is, just psychologically, creeps. These little things just like wear her down in a way that, I feel like people, I'm sure everyone can relate to in little aspects of their lives, but it really, because of the time and her situation, it really just crushes her.
Jane, maybe you can say a little bit about working with actors and working with these actors specifically. I'm wondering if your way of directing actors has evolved over the years, or is it just dependent on the actor or the role? I think one thing that's very striking about this film and many of your films is just how physical the performances are. I think there's an intense physicality to everybody on screen, and I think gesture and body language is always so important in your films.
Well, the number one thing is like choosing amazing people and then trusting them. That's really my basic recipe. And then I think the thing that's really changed is like when I was first making films like Sweetie, we used to rehearse almost every scene, dialogue-wise. And now I feel like I don't want to do that anymore. I want to like try and create a situation much more where we would rehearse in a more 360-degree way. Like we might pick out a few scenes that we think like, let's just check this with the script, like make sure it's actually going to work. But a lot of the time is spent on improvisation, which just gives people body memories and confidence, I think, about the relationships that they could have, and we get to know each other, and it's a very open process. We get to explore. We used a choreographer this time to do some stuff. I was trying to think of a way to start the two brothers and their relationship off, and I had the idea that maybe I'd get a choreographer to teach them how to waltz together, and that Benedict would have to lead Jessie, and Jessie would have to learn to listen to Benedict. These sound like really, I don't know, off-the-wall ideas, but actually I think I liked it anyway. I don't know. What do you think?
I loved waltzing with Jessie. You're gonna watch out. Yeah, you're gonna have to watch out. No, immediate physical contact, the smell, the feel, the touch of two brothers who have grown up together. I'm a huge Jessie fan. Who isn't? He's just one of the most exceptional actors living. He brings such truth and weight to every choice. And, the work's all there, but you don't see it all necessarily. It's just a deep iceberg well of brilliance to that boy, and everything on the surface of it is spellbinding. And so as a fan, I was like a little in awe, but I had to get to be his brother. I had to call him fatso. I had to be pretty fucking horrible to him. And at the same time, all out of love, a thing born out of a sort of unspoken brotherly love, a bond, let's say, if not love as we know it. And so it's a gestural thing, but it really helps, to be physically close to someone waltzing and picking up on each other's rhythms. And we went on a walk together. We did a hike, we were supposed to be in character. We weren't in character all the time. It's before we started the shoot.
That's right, and I made them separate, didn't I?
You did, yeah, but we didn't separate for long.
Now you tell me.
Matt, he was like, this damn map. He's like, I went too far, then I went back.
Yeah. I did go for a swim, and I saw him passing. I thought it's quite a Phil move to be in the water swimming as George goes by. And then I sort of came around the back of him and went, ha-ha, you know.
Yeah.
Arsehole.
But
It all helps. It helps to build a trust, and then you throw it out on the floor on the day with a little bit more daring, you know, a little bit more openness.
I think it's really nice, you know, I always try to think of ways to take people out of their heads and into the world of the story and into their bodies, because I think the mind is a really limited instrument compared to like what you can do with your body and your psyche. Yeah.
There's quite a lot in the book. I don't know about your physicalities, but there's quite a lot in the book about Phil, spraddle-legged and arms behind his back. There's lots of things that he's very specific about.
Definitely, that was something that we explored a lot with, I believe, a body coach. Forgive me, I forget his name right now, but it was something like, if I can be completely honest, like I kind of doubted at first, and I felt a bit like, do I have to do that? But as soon as I released that judgment and I completely surrendered and just trusted the whole course of what we were doing and the whole process, and everyone else was doing the same thing, so it made it a lot more fun and easier. And I found so much more terrain to explore within myself and my abilities, and I feel like that's where I actually found Peter. That's where I discovered Peter when I went there. So yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for a couple of audience questions. So yeah, sure, we'll start here in the front. Yes. Yep. The question is about the various motifs associated with the character, like the whistling and the piano and the fidgeting with the comb, and whether that comes from the book or they were
the fidgeting with the comb comes from the book, doesn't it? And the whistling, I think I made up. And you did.
I can't remember. I made it up, the sort of slow pace of it, but I don't.
Like, I actually don't think Phil came back to the dinner party. You know,
No.
he never returned, and we didn't know
didn't.
where he was.
No, and it was it's the banjo that he taunts her with rather than the whistle, which comes back.
There wasn't the scene where out the window.
No.
In the book. So, you know, I think you're always looking to use the information. I mean, like stand on Thomas Savage's shoulders and then try and use what you can to tell the story in a different way for film. And I think repeating motifs, especially if they have payoffs, do have a sort of strength to them.
Okay. Yes? Question is for Benedict, and whether he distinguishes between, I guess, more commercial projects and... Sorry, what was the opposite of commercial? Art. Artisan. Okay. Art. Your artisanal work, as a.
I get where the question's coming from. Thank you for your question. Thank you for seeing the film twice as well. I can make a joke now, but it would end up being a Variety headline, so I better not.
Oh, please do.
Go on.
Wait, no, I'm not going to. I'm already in enough trouble as it is. No, you know. Stop it. They're really trying to get me into trouble. It's not you that has to put up with the headline. Sorry, I'll give a serious answer to your question. For me, there shouldn't ever be a dividing line. You know, you do it all with the same amount of focus and integrity and hard work. And one may be a payday. There you go. There's a headline. But I'll tell you what, you don't get a payday unless you work hard at it. So there has to be integrity behind whatever you do. And I'm just very, very lucky that that sort of division of work that exists in an audience's mind, that I get to span that division. For me, every job is the first and potentially the last, you know? And what I always try to do is make the experience live up to the expectation that someone as brilliant as my director here is to put trust and faith in me. That's a high bar to return, and the same when it comes to trying to pull off a sort of more populist character. So yeah, there's ownership and trust, and I try to work hard to earn what I've been gifted. Note the applause, Variety.
Okay. All right, we're gonna squeeze in one last question. Oh God, there's so many. Question is for Benedict and Kodi about the various.
I had to learn
branch-
piano, and I had never learned piano before in my life.
Yes.
Yeah, the skills you picked up for the film. Can you still whistle?
No, obviously not. I've got to dry mouth. No, I had to pick up a lot of skills. I can whistle. I'm going to wet the whistle. Actually, no, you should always dry the whistle. Depends which one. That one. Actually, that one I do need. That's the dry whistle. I need the other. Yeah, obviously I learned nothing. I'm on to my next job. No, yeah. Peter, do you want to go first? I mean,
Yeah, I'll help you out here.
Thank you.
No, I really, when it comes to like the ranching and stuff like that, I had to know as least as possible to pull off the awkwardness, which I'm great at, by the way, if you haven't discovered.
to learn being a learner.
Yeah, right.
Probably a better horse rider than I am.
And no.
Jesse's probably the best
He is.
rider.
He
and
grew up on a
roper.
ranch.
He's
That
the
boy grew up on a
roper
ranch,
of the
so-
group.
Yeah, he is. He's the true.
He knows how to rope.
He knows how to rope.
Yeah.
He's done rodeo. You know, he's lived the life. I haven't. I went to dude camp for 2 weeks. I learned a lot watching Jesse, working with the horse hands in New Zealand. I had an incredible horse called Cricket, who I'll remember to my dying day, who was, taught me to be a better rider. I went on worse horses afterwards and I knew what to do. But I had to learn the banjo. I also did some taxidermy, some ironmongery. I mean, basically in the book, if you ever read it, which I really suggest you do, because if you like the film, it's an extraordinary novel. He's a polymath. Everything he turns his hands to, he's brilliant at, whether it's whittling or whistling, despite me not being able to do it now. Horse riding, roping, ranching, and everything else in between. You know, he's running a ranch. He has to shoe the horses. He has to repair machinery. He has to be able to, know how to saddle up as well as make a saddle and whittle. Anyway, I could go on. I won't. But yeah, I had to learn a lot. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I want to thank you all for this remarkable film.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being here with us.